Here we go. All right, let's kick off another big hour here of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad you're here for the conversation as we round through another week. I mean, it's busy all the time. Glad to have you here. I'm fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom and giving you better analysis than anyone else every single day. Thank you for taking the time to stop in. Three big things this hour. Number one, in Delaware, the high price of the Green New Deal is crushing residents with out-of-control energy prices, leaving them scrambling to make it. Don't worry, your state's next. Number two, President Trump has issued a very stern order to Hamas. Release all remaining prisoners and turn over all the bodies of those you've killed since October the 7th, or we're coming with a fury, and we're coming soon. And number three, here's where we are starting today. The aftermath of the president's speech to Congress, still top of mind for millions of people. And this interaction going viral after President Trump's address to Congress. Representative Lance Gooden had enough with Democrat Representative Melanie Stansbury's sign saying this is not normal. As President Trump entered the congressional chamber, it had all he could take, in fact. I think this is a perfect illustration of just how far gone the Democrats are, that they think they're the normal ones. The Democrat Party lost control of the White House and both houses of Congress last year because they're officially not normal. They ignored the border crisis, ignored inflation, pushed transgender ideology in schools while ignoring parents, and completely ignored American interests while embracing 1,000 wacky ideas around the world. As I shared yesterday, CBS Instant Poll found that 76% of those who watched the speech approved Donald Trump's message last night. That's an eye-popping number. Would you believe CBS would even publish it? Unbelievable. But Americans, supermajorities of Americans, support this president in almost everything he does. 76%. Look at those numbers. In fact, Americans are getting what they voted for. Democrats, they just can't stand it. During the joint address, Democrats refused to stand and acknowledge several key guests of President Trump. You know this, but it's worth repeating. The 13-year-old boy fighting cancer, DJ Daniels, to whom Trump awarded honorary status as a Secret Service agent. Democrats sat stone cold while Trump honored a young individual. And even worse, the mainstream media villainized the heartfelt moment with this. Here's the most despicable display I have ever seen. It comes from MSNBC's Nicole Wallace. Listen to this.
Right, and I hope he lives and the life he wants to live. He wants to be a cop. He knows what he wants to do. And maybe when you have childhood cancer, that crystallizes for you. And I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer. But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
Unbelievable. Absolutely disgusting. I talked about it yesterday, but just to hear it. It's the most disgusting display I've seen on cable news, maybe ever. It's the farthest stretch to January 6th I've ever seen. It's going to be one of the most reprehensible to take a boy beating cancer, twisted somehow into him committing suicide at some point in the future because he might run into Donald Trump supporters. Really? A 13-year-old triumphing over what they thought was an incurable brain tumor. He's only supposed to live 5 months. That was 7 years ago now. Why is she even still employed? That's the real question today. Making young DJs fight against cancer about January the 6th. How low can these people go? Democrats also refused to stand for the 95-year-old mother of Mark Fogel. She just got her son back from a Russian prison after 6 years. They also essentially spit in the faces of the families who will never see their children again after they were murdered by illegal aliens across our southern border under the Democrat-run administration. Remember how they said, we can only fix the border if we have legislation? Well, that's weird. Because in the entire month of February, only 8,300 illegals were caught at the southern border. 8,300 for the entire month. It's the lowest ever recorded. No legislation needed, just law enforcement. Now, Senator John Fetterman seemed to have just a moment of clarity. When he tweeted in response to his party's decay, he tweeted this: a sad cavalcade of self-owns and unhinged petulance. It only makes Trump look more presidential and restrained. We're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to, and it may not be the winning message. May not be the winning message. I can assure you, John, and your black hoodie, it's not a winning message, and it's actually getting worse. It's now that another day has passed, and this continues to rot. The behavior on Tuesday doesn't get better with time. It gets worse as you look at that and you let that sink in as to what they did. These people have no backbone, no heart, no message. They have no leader, obviously. And sadly, they have no loyalty to America. In fact, I'll tell you the one time they did cheer, during this moment. Listen.
With no end in sight, the United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. With no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes.
That's right. Democrats flew one flag this week. Sadly, not the American flag again, but the Ukrainian flag. Let's make another thing perfectly clear. It's not because they want peace in Ukraine. No, they want war. They want more bodies stacked like cordwood. It's easy to tell since they continue to oppose everything Donald Trump is trying to do to secure a ceasefire and help America get a good deal in the process. President Zelensky has changed his tune twice this week, sending a letter to Trump that says he wants to make things right after what happened last Friday, and he's ready to sign a minerals deal. Why? Because he realizes Europe doesn't have what it takes to end the war. They never did. And all their promises to the contrary are simply empty. How about a timeline, shall we? Last Friday, Zelensky thought he could strong-arm the U.S. into funding an endless war by throwing a fit in the Oval Office. When that didn't work, he spent the weekend in London begging Europe for more help. Apparently, they didn't have much to offer despite their I stand with Ukraine message. Monday, Trump cuts all aid to Ukraine. And Tuesday, Zelensky is ready for America's path to peace between Russia and Ukraine. That is the art of the deal. But then Zelensky apparently might have backed out again. Democrats are too blinded by their Trump derangement syndrome to acknowledge that. And so is Zelensky, who then came back out and said he will not negotiate with Russia. Yeah. No, he wants an Article 5 declaration. That's what he wants. I don't know why. Or is that what Barack Obama and those Democrats on the left want? Because if they get an Article 5 declaration, it'll be Europe, the EU, that will pay a very high price because it will mean all-out war, World War III. Progressives seem to be ignoring the American interest, and that's sad. It was Barack Obama in the White House when the Ukrainian government was overthrown in 2014. The United States instrumental in that, by the way, instrumental in removing the duly elected government of Ukraine in 2014, and it has led us here. Let that sink in for a moment. We'll take a break and be right back on the Steve Gruber Show. Are you ready to retire? No matter where you look, it seems the progressives ignore American interests when it comes to just about everything, including tariffs, flying back and forth between the United States and Canada in what they're calling Trump's trade war. Let's take a look at the facts. Democrats, of course, hate it when I do that. Listen to this from National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Here he is.
But here's the way I'd like to think about it. That right now, U.S. companies are paying foreign governments about $370 billion a year in tax. And foreign companies are paying the U.S. government about $57 billion in tax.
Yeah. Let that sink in. $370 billion that we're paying, $57 billion that we're being paid. Now, not quite fair, right? How about Canada specifically? Well, as of 2022, they've got a 120% tariff on milk from us, 80% tariff on fresh chicken, 122% on cheese. The list goes on, and this is Trump's trade war. These are the tariffs they're putting on our farmers. And yes, they kill us on eggs too. Nice work, Democrats. But we're supposed to be enraged that Donald Trump wants to enact a 25% tariff on Canada? Right? Come on, this goes deeper than just trade. This has to do with American lives. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt with more data. Listen to this.
At the northern border, there was enough fentanyl to kill 9.8 million people. That's up 2,050% since 2023, the year prior. 2,050% increase. These countries have to be held accountable for that. Fentanyl is the leading cause of death in this country from ages 18 to 34. And if you talk to the families and the parents who have lost their children at the hands of this deadly poison, they will tell you they are grateful for the president finally taking strong action to end this epidemic and this crisis in our country.
Yeah. This administration knows what Americans care about. She's exactly right. You know who doesn't know? Democrats, globalists, leftists, you know, people like Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But in his response to Donald Trump's tariffs, he pretended to sympathize with us while attacking the president they voted for. He told Americans that Canadians are going to be boycotting the MAGA administration by dropping their vacations to Florida. Ooh. And not buying American bourbon. Ooh. And booing our national anthem, which they're already doing so. Ooh. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis. He's got a response to that. Governor, here he is.
We continue to set tourism records. 2024 saw more than 142 million visitors come to the state of Florida. This includes 3.3 million visitors from Canada. That's not much of a boycott in my book. Maybe they wanted to get a glimpse of what a Stanley Cup winning hockey team actually looks like.
Nothing like riding salt in the wound. Nice job, Governor. Hilarious, but I think it illustrates the bigger point, which is this. Trudeau is just as out of touch with the Canadian population as Democrats are with the Americans. Listen to this lawyer from Alberta, Canada. He's not out of touch. He's packing his bags. Here he is.
There's statehood. Well, there's a group of Albertans that are working together right now to put together a delegation to go to Washington to talk to the Trump administration about Alberta petitioning for U.S. statehood. It's quite evident that we're being governed by idiots in Ottawa who don't understand that we can't afford a trade war with our largest trading partner. And rather than simply apologizing to President Trump for not meeting our NATO commitments and not adequately securing our border, apparently the Trudeau government has decided to declare a trade war and run up trillions of dollars in costs like they did during COVID on a made-up emergency. So there's a number of us in Alberta that have had enough and want to go speak with the Trump administration about the benefits of Alberta joining the United States.
Wouldn't that be something? Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, 3 new states. By the way, they'd all bring Republican senators and conservative common sense attitudes to Washington. Wouldn't that be something? But the Canadian elites are not interested in what benefits their countrymen. Instead of taking responsibility for their heavy tariffs on us and apologizing for their role in the fentanyl crisis, they're doing this. Here's the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. Listen to this.
We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes and manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it. It's unfortunate. I would rather ship you more electricity, ship you more critical minerals. I want to ship you more energy, more potash to keep your farmers going, and uranium that you use for your nuclear power. It comes through from Saskatchewan over to Ontario, and it's going to be a massive, massive problem.
They're playing with fire, my friends. Oh, and if you cancel Starlink, by the way, which is one of the things he talked about, canceling Starlink, the Canadian system that will allegedly replace it won't even be available until at least 2027. So, yeah, that's another genius idea, Dougie. Nobody cares. All right, look, we don't care. The Home Builders Association says that Canada's counter tariffs are going to do damage and it's going to be doom and gloom. We've got that going for us. Listen to this.
U.S. tariffs of 25% on Canada will be problematic. They, in and of themselves, will have muted effect on construction costs here in Canada. What will affect our market more will be our own counter tariffs and, most importantly, the impact the U.S. tariffs will have on our overall economy, which in turn will affect housing starts. There you go. Now, look, there's a reason Justin Trudeau's on the way out the door. He's very unpopular.
He's done a remarkable laundry list of stupid things. Canadians are sick of it, but here's the problem. He wants to stick it to Donald Trump. That's fine. It's not going to work. Look, here's the problem that we have currently with Justin Trudeau, and that is this. He doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to leave. Our own Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, says that Mexico and Canada are still in the midst of negotiations with President Trump. We could see updates to these policies sooner rather than later. On Truth Social, Trump says he had a somewhat friendly phone call with Trudeau. But again, I'm going to go back to this. If you haven't heard this part, they're claiming that there's this crisis now. And so they're not going to hold elections. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. I mean, that's rich because the left always accuses Trump of wanting to stay in power forever, and yet here it is, Canada. Justin Trudeau and his party saying, oh, we're not going to be able to call elections if we've got this tariff crisis, this trade war. Yeah, isn't it interesting how those on the left point fingers at those on the right, but it's always them that's pulling the stunt? There's your education for today. Welcome, Alberta. State 51. We'll take it. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I'll be right back.